All right, and we're on. Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Megan Rose Dickey. I'm a reporter at TechCrunch. I cover diversity and inclusion, and I'm going to give our four lovely panelists about 30 seconds each to tell you their names and the organization they represent. Start with you.
Fantastic. My name is Marlon Evans. I'm the CEO of GSVlabs. That's GSV stands for Global Silicon Valley. We have about 160 startups that we accelerate based out of Redwood City across mobile, big data, sustainability, and ed tech.
My name is Deldelp Medina. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Avion Ventures. We specifically work with Latinas here in the Silicon Valley. We have an 8-week program, so technically we're not an accelerator, we're a pre-accelerator.
Hi, my name is Horie, founder and CEO of a women's startup lab. We're located in Menlo Park. We focus on a woman-led company, so we do welcome all the men who included a woman leader in your team. Yes. So it's not just women, even though we use quite a bit of a pink in our office. We support early stage company all the way to pre-seed, just ready to go, getting funding. We felt that it was important to include an early stage company before even they get to the investment phase. We do not invest it in the past, but we're getting funded right now. So the early stage startup that are not quite ready for the investment, they have option to pay for the tuition to go through, and others who can't pay, they can exchange with equity, and others who actually are ready, then they get some sort of equity as a possibility. So that's how we structure. We feel that we support much early startup even though at the demo stage. And we're located in Menlo Park, and I'm just really happy to be here, and thank you for including us.
I'm Michael Hall. I'm the founder of Digital Grass from South Florida. I'm also a part-time lapel wearer, so that's where the lapels come from. We focus on diversity-led businesses that are women, minority, and LGBT community. We take little to no equity of the organizations, and we also have a social awareness campaign that's called We Are Tech, that's W3R Tech, where we're trying to unify all diversity-led focuses.
Cool, great. And so Michael, I actually kind of want to start with you because when I was preparing for this panel, I saw that you represent an organization in South Florida. Sorry to break it to you, I haven't really thought much about South Florida, so it'd be great if you could tell us what's going on there and what exactly you're trying to accomplish there.
We actually do everything at night. We do everything in a club. It's exactly what you think.
That's the real way.
So we're real live. The interesting thing is, I would say South Florida has a dynamic that most people don't know about. We have an organization by the name of Knight Foundation that's pretty much built our tech scene. They built our tech and innovation scene, but at the same time, you have Magic Leap, which has received one of the largest round of venture capitalist funding that's right up the street. So even if you don't know about us, remember that $500 million came in venture capitalists, and there's no place that has more energy right now with the support of Knight Foundation.
And so tell me a little bit about what you're doing with your organization to incubate and accelerate diverse entrepreneurs in South Florida, and what your strategy is.
To not sound shallow, we're just trying to give them hope. A lot of organizations have great talent and they just don't get the exposure. So you got to think, just with you not knowing about what's going on in South Florida, most of the people in South Florida don't know what's going on in South Florida. So we have a divisional element where people just aren't connected, and you have so much talent and so many opportunities. So you have the gateway to South America, you have the African diaspora, and you also have the Caribbean diaspora. So we have so much talent and so many companies there, we just don't have the funding. So we all came together with companies and organizations like Black Tech Week, Knight Foundation, and we was just like, look, let's just give them the support. So we actually offer a lot of services. So in our accelerator, we don't just give them mentors and advice. We help them design a better logo, put together a better business plan. So we become one with their company. So we only take on 3 or 4 cohorts. So it's a lot more personal.
Great, awesome. And Ari, if you just want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Women's Startup Lab.
Sure. We offer 2 weeks intense program as well as a 2 months program. We used to do 3 months program, but because we targeted women, many of the successful women that are applying around the world say, gosh, I really want to come here, especially gateway to international opportunity. I want to come in Silicon Valley. But just 3 months is not something I can afford because I already have a successful company and I have children. And is there any way you can make it shorter? And our philosophy has been really focusing on the founder growth. When we look at just the typical VC world, the failure rate is over 90%. That's okay, that's how it is. But there's a few that had a lower rate and failure rate. And when we really look at the data, what they do differently was they were focusing on the founder growth. That's one. And then two, they really look at how they can continue to support the founder's growth. Each stage, as you know, has different challenges. So even though our program is, let's say, 2 weeks or 2 months, we commit to each other that we continue to support whenever they're at the certain stage and try to introduce advisors and mentors. So we look at it as very much ongoing. And we don't also look at success is just exit. We consider success as how many number of women continue to stay in the business and making an impact. It's not just measured by how much money you make, but how much money you save in the world. How much women stays in the business and continue to impact in creating a business. So it's hard number to measure, but we consider we need to also seek a different type of success model. And so we look at what is for women. We continue to support their growth states and continue to support, even though they might not seek the VC type of the funding, we also support angel type of round and continue to have a lean growth and company. So that's what we offer right now. Lastly, what makes us really also different is when we look at startup industry, tended to be more of drop everything, go, 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 very much cowboy style. And I think that works, and that can be great. But some of us has a different priority in life, and we're equally smart, equally talented, and committed. And just because we have different things that we have to handle in our personal life, it doesn't mean that the business is not good enough to compete. And so we wanted to have our model to be more collaborative. People coming together, sharing their brain power to support other female entrepreneurs. So during the program, we call cohort, and everybody is in it together. They have to help other founders to come up with a better marketing solution, the logo, whatnot. So we really focus on having our program to be cohesive and supporting each other. So it's not just coexisting in the office. Not that other people are that way only, but it's kind of left it organic. We bring professional coaches that really facilitate deep thoughts, why they bother to start the startup. So they become really personally connect to each other. We talk about the failure, we talk about the fears, and that's how we really try to bond that connection and trust to really bring out the accelerating relationship among founders and advisor.
Great, and I'm wondering, and this is open to all of you, can all chime in here, but how you go about addressing and supporting founders from all different types of diverse backgrounds. So Michael, you're focused on entrepreneurs in South Florida. Marlon, I know that you're focused on, you're kind of looking at diversity more from an industry standpoint, so it's education, sustainability. Del, you're looking at it from the perspective of Latinas, and then, of course, Horie, you're looking at it from the perspective of just women. And so I'm kind of wondering how we can actually support an ecosystem that really nurtures all of these incubators and accelerators.
I mean, I'll start off. It's just, if you look at what you said and you take that down the line, so you have diversity in the fact of the industries. You have diversity with Latina, and then you have diversity with women. So if you had one organization that was more so the beacon of it, just how churches were during the 60s and just being able to lead that, how Martin Luther King was. If you had one organization that led all those things, it's really building a system where you feed each other and feed off of each other. So it's really about sharing resources. So instead of people working in silos because they feel they're already at a disadvantage, you're only hurting yourself even more. So if you join forces and I say, you know what, I can only do so much with you, but you're a woman-owned business, I'm gonna let you go here. Go talk to her. She can do more for you. More people feel they have to own the success. So it's like, why don't we create our own, what I would say is TFL, Technology Financial League. Like, why don't we make our own group, bring everybody together and share the resources, because we're already at a disadvantage. So if we don't help each other, I would say the greater B's are already winning because we're not working together to defeat the opportunities. So.
I mean, I think I'm really lucky to call these people on this panel my colleagues and also many other people out there. I don't think that you can undertake this work without having that mentality. You're not going to last. Because the work itself requires you to share resources and to find out people and to be engaged with other people regardless of what pool you're working with and what you're trying to push forward. So I agree, like we have to work together, we have no choice. For me, the part that I think is like a little schizophrenic sometimes about this conversation is that the reality is that what we're doing is economic development, except we never call it that.
Yes.
And then people who do well, Carla, you're the exception to the rule, as always. But the people who are doing economic development don't even take a look at us and don't necessarily want to have relationships. And so I find myself knocking on a lot of doors where they're like, why are you here? Right. And I'm like, well, we're the fastest growing population in the United States. Latina women build businesses 6 times the rate of anybody else. And we're most underrepresented when it comes to tech. So there is a disparity. And if we're going to become millionaires and billionaires in the 21st century, we have to have a stake in technology. All of us do. Otherwise, this country will not do well. So for me, this is the thing that keeps me going in the, every morning when I go, like I have a list of stuff to do that cannot get done within 24 hours, is the fact of this idea that's much bigger than myself of, hey, this is the 21st century, the US is going to change radically, it will never go back to what it used to be, and we have to create a new infrastructure, a new way of thinking, but more importantly, new tools, for us, by us,
FUBU.
Yeah, FUBU.
And then, because we're focused on women, sometimes we get, well, you're a discriminatory organization. So no, we don't. We're just creating a safe place, and it's a choice. We're not against the accelerator, or if there's a men's startup lab, there's no issue with that, right? So it's just a really inclusion. And diversifies, people think it's segregation, but we're always welcoming anybody come to our organization, but after our path, we always recommend them to other accelerator. And as a matter of fact, out of 50 that graduated, 2 already went into 500, 1 went into Y Combinator. And many of the people who's been accepted at the accelerator, they actually graduate from other accelerator. They continue to learn, they continue to expand network and groom themselves. So you don't have to really think that you have to pick one and continue to kind of expand on the relationship you have among those, those of us who focus on that passion as well. Yeah.
No, I mean, only point to add there was I think at GSV we kind of view it as more stages of development. So trying to think of how we can fill our particular niche in terms of where the entrepreneur is in their current trajectory. And I think a lot of times there are many programs out there that kind of get you to 0 to 10, and then they say, ta-da, now go off, and prosper. And then there's nobody there to kind of keep them, pushing through some of the tougher times when you're out there. You may have some seed funding, but now you're trying to actually build your business, go from 1 employee to 5 employees, grow from 1 million to 10 million. To me, those are some of the the more difficult hurdles to cross, and I think that's the role that we're trying to play, not only for entrepreneurs with diverse backgrounds, but for all entrepreneurs.
Nice. Yeah. So let's talk about funding. How do each of you go about getting the people in your respective programs actually funded by the venture capital community?
We find it to be a challenge. South Florida has been. South Florida has been funded pretty much by a lot of rich real estate moguls that just want to have that 10x investment, so they don't really understand a lot about building a company, or they don't understand innovation in tech. So you have a challenge there. The biggest thing is really making more friends in San Francisco and allowing, I would say, venture capitalist group, angel investment groups to understand this is your future. So you're not going to be able to ignore more women. You're not going to be able to ignore more diversity. So if this is the future you're looking at, you should start investing, because this will be the first time you miss out on a great opportunity. That's right. And so it takes some courage to go out and tell them that. And if you put that platform in front of them, it's like, look, we're just helping your deal flow. We're just giving you enough, because if you keep going to the same guys that look the same, and most of them are my friends, and you know, it's the jeans, the button-ups, the blazers, and the beard. Drink beer with them, but if you stay in the same circles, that's why you keep hearing the same ideas. Right. So unfortunately in Florida, there's 7,000 investors and 3,000 startups. You guys may not have that problem over here, but that's a great problem to have, but then you're like, why do you have this problem? That's because they're still looking in the exact same circles. Yeah. So why aren't you in the hood? Why aren't you going to the place where that little boy built something for his family to be able to watch TV? Might have been illegal, but he built it. Yeah. So, you know, yeah, you got to go give them those opportunities. So I think the biggest thing is re-educating investors to make them feel safe. Because can I get the dude in the Maybach to go sit down with one of my homeboys? It might not feel right. Can I get him to respect a woman and see her as a powerhouse? Because we already know most companies with women as executives have a higher success ratio in employee retention. People want to work around, they're naturally caregivers. Have a bad day, you don't call your homeboy to come take care of you. You call a woman, I'm sick. So men are naturally needing to be comfort, so we have to reach out for that comfort. So I think you have to look at it the same way. So it's all about exposure right now. So.
Totally. Would anyone else like to chime in on that, just getting funding for your cohort?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about doing your homework and making the right matches. Because I think if you are just taking a kind of spray and pray approach and just putting folks in front of people that's not their area of interest, that's not your concern, you lose credibility in that process. So, you know, just making sure that we have a good understanding of our entrepreneurs. We obviously know what our investors are interested in and making those matches.
Well, I come from the product side. I've had to learn about this other part of the world. And it's something as little as like defining what Latina means for me was a shocker that I actually had to do that. But the reality is that most people that are in the investment world don't have relationships with people that look like me or come from my background. And so I had to really educate potential investors about who we are, what we do, what the opportunity is, and kind of validate time and time again that what we were doing matters from a financial point of view. I think that when you don't come from money, the conversation around money can be very emotionally loaded. And so I find that a lot of the training that we do on both sides, it's one, explain to the investor what the opportunity is and what we're doing. And on the other side, training the entrepreneur to have a conversation that doesn't feel emotionally loaded, that is about the product and kind of detaching themselves a little bit from it. Otherwise, it just does not go well.
Right, and so can you tell me a little bit about your selling point to investors? How are you convincing them that they're missing out on a really big market?
Well, first of all, I think that the entrepreneurs themselves are building interesting things that are not the usual. They're not the same old. They're not the same way of thinking because they're looking to make products for themselves and their communities. So that's part of it. But also just demographic change for us has been huge. Like Nielsen just came out with a report in March around Latinas, which has been hugely helpful because they've kind of encapsulated all this research that I had put together into one about talking about that. So I just sent that out to a whole bunch of people, and it was interesting to see the positive reaction of like, oh, that's what you were talking about. But I think like the demographic shift is, it's inevitable. Yeah. It's like the tide's rising. We have no choice but to actually deal with the fact that tides are going to rise.
I think it's one of those things, if you pay attention to the census, if you only know your circles, you got to see what's happening.
Yeah.
So if you want to be able to reach that next large demographic wave pool, you need to be able to communicate with them and understand their culture and understand their pain points and what their needs are. Because their needs are going to be a lot different than yours. So what you may think you need, they haven't even gotten to that point of even having that need because they're at a whole different level. Yeah. So they might need so you're talking about an Uber, they just want to be able to get on the bus. Yeah. They just want to know that the bus is running on time. So that's a whole different thing. So if you got to look at those things. That's why Hopstop, that was picked up by Apple. Mm-hmm. You know, it was $1 billion investment, but he was fulfilling the need of his community. Yeah. And it built something valuable that was able to be used for the world. And that's how things start off. When you're fulfilling a purpose or you're fulfilling a need, it'll normally transpire to something much bigger. But if you don't know the needs of other communities because you're not in touch with them, you're never going to see that next big idea. And that's what I tell them. So do you want to mix? Do you want to have the next $1 billion idea, or do you want to say you had the opportunity but you never visited? Yes. So That's the selling point.
One of the things I've seen, meeting hundreds of wonderful people who's pursuing their dream startup, I often see that they're chasing money, but they're not chasing a customer enough.
Yes.
And they're asking accelerator to give the magic wand to say, here's the investor lead. But there's nothing we can do unless investor finds something that interesting enough that you prove that your customer is saying yes, 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 yes. And I can't say enough about how we all get desperate about that one investor and somebody else who give that huge introduction, your problem will be solved. But the truth is, the real problem-solving answer is from the customer. That's one. And two, we as an accelerator, we all have a heart so much that we want to all help. But we can't help you unless you build that customer line. It's just as much as it's important to have a great product that connects with the customer, you also need to spend a really good amount of time finding a right channel to get your product out, right? Same thing for yourself as a founder to the investor. It's not that all the investors are one cut it all. Some investor focus on white space, some investor looking for really early stage and don't mind to give it 250 or even 50,000 to get you going so they can get to know you. So all the investor has a different tactic and focus. And so you need to do really good study on who you are targeting. And so as much as you train yourself as a stellar founder who can articulate your story, why you have a great idea, meantime, you have to tell them how you actually focus on the product and getting that out to the market while you're looking for your channel, which is an investor who can advise you and help you, not just asking for the money, really building a trust. So look at the accelerator is not to say, here, give me an investor who you can introduce, but can you recommend me what kind of great founder I am and a product? That's beginning for everything.
Right.
One of the things that I also repeat is, you marry to your husband or whatnot, you can divorce, right? But investor, you can't.
Yep.
You sign up for your baby, and you can't divorce. So as desperate as we all felt sometime, it's really important to pick who you're raising a baby with, that you have no chance to divorce, or they will just take it away from you, right? So just the reality part that I really think that we ought to remind ourselves, all of us. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, definitely. And Marlon, I'm thinking about GSVlabs specifically, and just how you're approaching technology solutions from the perspective of education, agriculture, et cetera. I guess you could say that those aren't typically hot investment markets. I mean, I think you've seen some growth in those areas recently, but so I'm curious about some of the challenges you face, and if you could talk about some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think we view it, so there's kind of mobile and big data, we kind of view more as the infrastructure, so they're more kind of horizontals across our verticals, and then you have ed tech and sustainability, which is really clean tech for us, which we see are what we think are some of the mega trends that we'll be talking about 10, 15 years from now, how those particular kind of entrenched industries were disrupted as a result of technology. So I think from our perspective, finding innovators, finding entrepreneurs who have a real passion for those areas, and then watching how by placing them in an accelerator where they're not just only solely focused on their particular industry, but they're looking to see how their industry impacts other industries as well, and what are some of the applicable uses of their technology beyond what they originally thought. So we see a lot of really great cross-pollination that happens within the lab when you have education technology companies sitting next to a big data company and trying to understand, well, how can I leverage all of the data that I have as a school, as a district, to really improve learning outcomes. So from our perspective, all of this can't happen in isolation, and really needs to be integrated, and that's where you're going to see the big change.
Got it. Cool. And I actually wanted to touch back on what we were talking about a bit earlier, just about how accelerators can kind of support each other. So Del, I know you were saying that you kind of consider everyone on this panel to be a colleague of yours. And so have you all worked together at some point? Is that Are you open to working together in the future?
No.
Absolutely not. But it takes events like this.
Yeah.
I mean, how many tech panels have you seen that has a lineup like this panel you have now?
Never.
You know, this is a starting point, you know,
Right.
bringing us all together. So everybody will exchange cars, but I may not be able to do agriculture. I don't think none of us are against working together. It's just giving us the opportunity to actually meet each other because we don't know each other. You know, I'm all the way in South Florida. I'm on the beach. You know, you guys are in traffic. It's different, right? So everybody should come get to know us. I mean, who doesn't want to come to Miami? But most people don't even know what's going on in Miami. So I think it's just, it's taking that first step. And this is the first step.
Yeah, our case, because we've been in the media quite a bit, we have reached to the global audience and we have applicants around the world. With that, we have some of the global accelerator and other part. They have reached out to us. So we have this global partnership where our graduate can go to any of the accelerator. We have a partnership.
Nice.
So my background is Japanese. So currently, a lot of Japanese companies are really interested in investing startup, but they just don't have enough startup in Japan. So they're coming over, contacting us. So many of our graduates now connected to a Japanese company, they're getting investment, but going back to the partnership, some of the corporate who created incubation, they would love to have some of the startup who visit Japan or other partner we have in different part of the world, you get to go and you get to explore the possible funding. Yes, Silicon Valley is interesting, but I tell my female entrepreneur, if this is competitive, because after all, the best of the best come here. And maybe there is a really bias, or maybe not, right? But the point is you find the place that you have most of the advantage of, and sometimes it's Nevada. They're really open, they're growing, they have money. And so we try to have a partnership with other places. Because we're focused on particular vertical, it allows us to have a leverage partnership, including some of the local incubator who have approached us and said, can you offer women-focused program in part of our program or at their site? So there's a lot of possibility.
And I think we all have people in common.
Yeah.
We have one person in common. We have one person in common. So I mean, that's my joke, that we all have either gone to the same schools, worked at the same companies, dated each other, our former business partners. It's very rare for people of color, for me not to be connected with someone.
Yeah, I think we're in the
so
same
few
women of color group.
Yeah,
on
we're like
Facebook.
in the same group. We just met for the first time,
Yeah.
but we've been virtually interacting. And so I think that makes it easier to also go and knock on a door or to get a phone call, and then to understand what each other is doing. And that makes life easier, because the reality is that this is really hard, lonely work sometimes. And you are building something brand new out of nothing. Right? Like, this didn't exist before, and suddenly now you're gonna will it into, you're gonna make it happen no matter what. This is what's gonna happen. You have a different vision of what the world's going to be, and that can sometimes feel lonely because you're looking at the world in a very different way. And so I would say that we're really lucky to be in the Bay Area. Because it is so competitive, you have no choice but to be really good here. Like, I grew up here, so in some ways I sometimes feel very territorial, like, this is my time. But the reality is, like, people who come here, you either make it or you don't.
Yeah, it's privileged to get to know so many people here.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so, Michael, there's a lot of talk about how amazing Silicon Valley is, how you have to be here. You're obviously in South Florida.
We'll go visit.
We talked about it, the joke yesterday. These are first world problems, the stuff you guys complain about.
Yeah.
iPhone 6 versus the iPhone 6s. You at least have an iPhone. So it's great, but at the same time, you don't go and recruit where everybody else is at. That's not where people make the most money. So if you're chasing the exact same dream, you're almost killing your own dream.
Yeah.
So why haven't you been to Atlanta? Why haven't you been to Raleigh, Durham? Why haven't you been to New York? Why haven't you been to South Florida? And I think you have a lot of people that just have limited visions. I love it here, but I think at the same time, it's time to think outside of the bubble that you want people to, because this is almost a virtual element of the crab in the barrel effect.
Yep.
You're all in the same crab. We just over there in the ocean. We just all floating, doing our own thing. It's all kind of space and white sand over here, but you're in this one little barrel and you're grabbing and pulling each other down. If these same companies and these same VCs came over to the East Coast, it'd be easy going.
Yeah.
Rent is cheaper, investment, no state taxes. We have benefits. And you talk about diversity, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, every form of an island is over there. That is your diverse pool. So if you really want to fix the problem, you're probably not going to find a solution staying inside the same bubble.
Cool. And we're a little low on time, but I wanted to at least get in a couple of questions from the audience, if there are any. All right. Yeah, we got 3 minutes. So if there are no hands, nope, we got one.
Hi, my name is Harold. I'm a software engineer at Box, and I just kind of want to reiterate something, or rather make a comment or observation and hear your thoughts about it. You know, you keep saying about bringing investors to South Florida, and it's kind of something that I felt like the whole inclusion and retention in the tech industry here in the Bay is more than just work. We talk about like how you keep people happy in the workplace, but it's also about life. So an example for me is I don't really feel like, you know, so outside of work, like I belong where I live. And it's just one of those things where it ends up being that I don't feel like I'm here to stay. Like it's just something that I'm passing by. And it's nothing to do with work. I feel like I'm doing well at work. I've been able to navigate those circles and do well enough. But it's just not something that's there for me to stay in, right? So if I could find a community where I'm in, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna make this a home and whatever, then I'm more likely to stay in tech and it's nothing to do with work. It's just about like my community and life. So I don't know if you have thoughts about that and pursuing that rather than bring people into Silicon Valley. It's kind of like finding and building tech in these various communities in different places where people have their preferences, right? Where people want to choose to live and make their lives. I
mean, if you were in South Florida, first of all, I'm using you to get into the clubs because you look like a basketball player. But you would be accepted because, you know, there's little Haiti right up the street. So it wouldn't matter where you went. But I mean, that's totally the thing. How do you build an environment? Because what is the culture here? You know, the valley was built up from people, the government brought everybody out here. So that was government intelligence that built the valley in the first place. But you really don't have the culture here. So if you want the culture, come to South Florida, brother. We got it.
Just really quickly, because I've been here since I was 8 years old, I would say this. San Francisco hasn't always been like this.
Absolutely.
And the last 5 years in particular have been very, very different. And so I would say you are here at a particular time and place that feels a little chaotic even for someone like me. I had a moment last year when I thought, do I want to stay here when I saw all my friends leaving? Like my friends that I grew up with, friends that I love, my community. And it was very difficult for us to decide that we actually wanted to stay here and raise our kid here. So I totally feel what you're saying, but you should also know that you get to make a choice of how you want to build culture. Culture is not a monolithic, one-size-fits-all statue on a plaza. Culture is a living, breathing thing. And if you want something, you got to go build it. If you want a particular kind of vibe and feel, you got to find people who are like-minded.
You should make them watch that documentary on San Francisco, what San Francisco used to be like in like the 60s and the 50s. Know the history of San Francisco.
Yeah. But you got to build it. But San Francisco, the beauty of San Francisco historically has always been that people come, they make a change, sometimes they leave, sometimes they stay, but they make that change, and you get the chance to do that. So I would really encourage you to go build what you want.
Nice. We have time for one more question.
My name is Carla Mays. My company is Mays Civic Innovation. And one of the areas I see, we talk about the valley was made by the government. And one of the areas I work on a lot is trying to get that economic development dollar that's working against us to work for us. And Del, you were talking about like your talks with economic development. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And I know I recently came to South Florida and was on a panel with you down in Miami, and it is incredible. It is incredible as to what's going on. with the amount of money that is spent by the Knight Foundation that's leveraged by some of the economic development departments in Miami-Dade and things. And it really gives us a new way of looking at things. But if you could both address like the Knight Foundation and the economic development elements that might be able to put some funding into this work.
I guess, Del, I don't like, for the Knight Foundation, they've given hundreds of millions of dollars to, I would say, incubators, accelerators, co-working space, and they've built these safe havens for diversity. Do you guys even have that here?
No. I mean, this is the thing. Because this space has been so led by VC money, nobody else has had to come in here and do any of this sort of work. So that's why I'm saying when I'm going and knocking on these doors and saying, like, let's have this conversation, they're like, why? It's working just fine. Part of the problem that I think we all have is that as far as a lot of people are concerned, there is no problem, so it doesn't need to be fixed. So why are we even having this conversation? People are making money no matter what. They are making 10x returns, so why are we even going to have this conversation? And so it becomes very difficult. I've had to redo my pitch many times and learn every time.
What's difficult is because minority doesn't get to that point of the investment. And the VC are interested in using the money to invest. So the pre-accelerator, try to build. I work with a Communitech in Canada. They put a lot of money. And anybody who's really succeeded to create this ecosystem across the US is very few. Because VC is not there to build the community.
That's not their job.
Their job is to invest. And not having that money here, let's say, it's really difficult for minority to get that support to even get there. So the people who had enough, whatever, to got there themselves, of course, they get in that golden band. But what we are trying to do is supporting earlier because we just some of the greatest company or a founder, they don't get discovered because ecosystem is somewhat lacking unless you have that, the golden idea or network. So, that's just slightly different.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.